Shamanic death, stacking and aligning intention to manifest abundance. What needs to be let go of in your life to allow more room for growth? These are some of the things we'll be discussing with Lisa Adams today, our next guest. Don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. I really hope you enjoy it, and hey, thank you so much.
But I tell you, one of the biggest things that I don't think people realize, this is the biggest one of all. You got to make an absolute decision and be decisive about what it is that you want and what you're going to accomplish in life. And when you're really set on that, the universe understands that energy and it will respond in kind.
For years, you've been serving as a high priestess. I was looking over your website and I read, well, it mentions metaphysics, energy, the cosmos, universal healing, magic, ritual, astrology, tarot, ancient esoteric wisdom. And it says, these are my wheelhouse, my tools. You had mentioned that you work through magic, ceremony, and ritual. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Magic is, the way that I like to describe it is sort of like a prayer. Now, I'm a big believer in prayer and, and this direct access to the divine, or God, or, whatever anybody wants to call it. We can plug in a lot of different names or terms. So I'm a big believer in prayer and that the divine listens and wants to reach back. If we reach out, the divine's going to reach back to us. So it's going to meet us. When I do magic, or when one decides to participate in doing magic or a ritual, spell work, there's a lot of different terms, then it's a much more active form of prayer that includes the use of language. It includes the use of different kinds of movement. And it also means working with universal energy to align whatever my prayer or my intention is with the energy of the world, natural energy in the cosmos. So for instance, the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, spirit, and because I'm an astrologer, also the planets, the moon, the cycle of the sun and the earth, all of those things. So when I do magic, it's about sort of like bringing all of these things together in order to create and affect change for the better.
Okay, I like the sounds of that. Yeah. On your website, it mentions the outmoded systems, the great American dreams / nightmare, consumption, death. I guess the idea of getting an education, getting married, having kids, getting a home, it may not be all it's cracked up to be. So this is kind of a topic that you hit on. I'd love to hear a little bit about it.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I went through, getting married and sort of like finding the one and getting married and everything, then I got there and it was kind of like, this is it, really? And I feel like we've all been sort of spoon-fed this idea from the time we're really young kids. I mean, look at Disney. Like, if you're a princess, there's going to be some, prince, and he's going to come and save you and whisk you away and you live happily ever after. But we never see what happily ever after is. Okay. And I really think that it's all part of a capitalistic, consumer-based society that the proper consumer unit is to be married with a family where you're paying a mortgage, you've got a couple of cars, you're putting your kids through school, you probably got at least one pet, and you're always kind of just working to keep up with all of the things or to buy the new, bigger, better, whatever. So there's a lot about like, you have to work hard, and you're kind of on the mill, right? Like the gerbil or the hamster wheel in order to keep up and to keep going. And the thing is, we get burned out and exhausted. It's not like a lot of fun to do all of that. And when I went through my divorce, then I quickly realized that my romantic notions of what it meant to be in love and married really came down to legal and financial contracts. And, so that was a big eye opener for me. I'm like, oh, the government doesn't care if you're in love, if you get married. The government cares, like, what are your responsibilities with your debts? Like, what are these contracts? What are these legal obligations? So that was a big eye opener. And I've been single for, I guess, about as long as I was married now. So I've been single again since 2010. And what I thought at first was, I was still kind of in that mindset, oh, I gotta find, you know, the one, or a partner or somebody, and like build this life together. And then I realized I was putting that on hold. I was putting my dreams on hold, thinking that I had to like be in a partnership in order to, realize my potential and build my dreams. And when I realized that that wasn't working for me, I wasn't having great success in relationships or whatever, I realized that the system is set up to function in a certain way. And the more I let go of those notions and those ideas of how life is supposed to be, the better life got for me. And the more I live in accordance with what's in my heart and my soul and what I want. And it's not like I'm out breaking laws or anything. I'm just not following, these kind of pat sort of, line or patterns that everybody else does, and I chose not to have kids. And at this time, I choose not to have a mortgage.
So I can relate exactly to what you said. I also was divorced back in, I think, 2010. And I've been trying to figure out what I enjoy doing. I love to educate people on these different wellness methods, these different wellness practices. I would love to have a partner. But for me, kind of like what you were saying, I'm not letting that hold me back. I found something that I enjoy doing, and it's not, by not having a relationship, it's not keeping me from doing the things that I feel I should be doing that are close to my heart.
Right on. I was letting it hold me back. I really was. I was kind of having this expectation that I really needed a partner so that we could co-create like this, amazing life or whatever. And since I kept having, hiccups or, going in and out of different relationships, I realized that, well, if I'm pinning all of my hopes and my dreams and my happiness on this idea that I'm going to have this pinnacle relationship, what if that never happens? Then am I just going to always sort of either put myself on hold or be disappointed? And I have a great life. So I had to really have a big sort of come to Jesus talk with myself about that, and realize that, you've got this great life. There's no need to pin everything on having, the great American dream. The great American dream, it seems to me, is also wrapped up in a lot of, keeping the rich and the powerful rich and powerful, and not so much about bringing up the average person.
I hear you. Okay. So all that being said, my next note on my notes, it's circled and underlined. It says shamanic death.
Oh, whew. This one I could talk forever and ever about. So, we've both been through divorce. There's different points in life where we undergo different kinds of like rites of passage or initiation. And most of us have some of the same ones. Like, we're all going to be born. Most of us are going to graduate from school, whether it's high school or maybe college or whatever. And then most of us are going to get married, and most of us are going to lose someone we love to death. And at the end of it all, we're going to die at some point too. And maybe we're going to go through divorce. Maybe we're going to get a cancer diagnosis, or some sort of life-altering event or diagnosis is going to happen. And what I've come to see is that these are points of initiation in our lives. They are points that mark the end of a certain era or phase of life and the beginning of another. And sometimes when we go through these rites of passage, and I think divorce is a big one. I think having, or even like the falling apart of a long-term relationship. But I think also, getting a diagnosis of some sort, like everything in your world turns upside down. It's very different. And as a result, there's a lot that leaves your life. Especially divorce is probably a good one to use, because your friends change, you probably move to a different place. And as a result, you might even end up in a different job situation. Your health probably is going to shift as well. You're going to close off to old ways of being, but then also there's going to be all these new influxes of energy and people and circumstances and opportunities. And before you know it, you're just in this completely different space than you were prior. And you've probably been going through all the ups and downs emotionally that are involved with divorce, because it's hard and it hurts. So that is a sort of a type of shamanic death. So, in a very traditional shamanic, training, maybe especially in like Central and South America, a lot of these folks come up in certain traditions, and they might go through a time where they get sick and die or almost die and come right back to life, or they get really ill, something like that, and or maybe an accident, or like a bite from maybe a poisonous snake or something. I mean, there's all these kinds of stories where they go through one of the hardest things ever, and then they come out, and they come out better for it. They come out more intrinsically connected to themselves and all of nature and the divine. They've got a better way of understanding how life works. And I feel that we don't acknowledge those kinds of rites of passage in our very modern Western society, but that we do have those instances. And in my own life, I'm starting to wonder if it's just one big, long sort of like purge and shamanic death after another, because it seems that every so often there's this huge upheaval where everything leaves and there's a new influx of energy. Or like I just lost 2 parents in 1 year, and within that time also placed my mother into assisted living, and went through some big upheaval and some health issues and loss of community and people I thought were friends. And as a result, I just feel that I'm an entirely different me than I was a year ago. I couldn't even begin to explain the kinds of intrinsic changes and understandings that I've gleaned as a result of going through this. And I think a lot of people are having a similar experience, just having lived through a pandemic anyway.
So you're saying in other cultures, they kind of celebrate these rebirths more than you would find here. Here in the US, I guess that's just not so much the case. I guess we celebrate the fun stuff, but not so much the rough stuff, the rough patches. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yes, we don't practice so much. We don't acknowledge as much. We do certain things like marriage, graduation. We tend to acknowledge those things. But like even, I love that Judaism has a rite of passage for becoming for growing into adulthood, that they still do bas mitzvah and bar mitzvahs for their kids. The closest thing we probably have to that in normal Western society is like graduation from high school and college or something like that. Whereas what the psyche misses is the acknowledgement, that acknowledgement of this era has passed and this new era is begun and is taking place. Commencement, right? It's this kind of idea, and we don't do it in such a ritualistic way that acknowledges what like the enormity of what those changes mean.
So I listened to one of your other podcasts, and you're talking about aligning your intention, aligning your energy, and that you could do this through ritual, action, and study. But I'd love to learn a little bit more about this, because I'd love to align my energy, so I can more quickly get to manifesting the things that I'd like to, achieve. Can you talk a little bit about this?
It's not a very complicated thing. I mean, you don't have to perform ritual and magic to get sort of lined up to bring about change that you want. It's really getting as many of your senses on board as possible. And I mean, like, it's things like visualizing and thinking about and focusing. It's maybe writing things down. It's getting as many of your senses involved as you possibly can. Maybe it looks like meditation, and it could look like, when you exercise, you're doing mantra, or you're thinking about these things that you want to create in your life. And you're being present also to what is. You're having gratitude, and acknowledging the beauty of life. But I tell you, one of the biggest things that I don't think people realize, this is the biggest one of all. You got to make an absolute decision and be decisive about what it is that you want and what you're going to accomplish in life. And when you're really set on that, the universe understands that energy and it will respond in kind. So it's not being wishy-washy. Oh, maybe I will, or will I? Like, I have a lot of people that come to me for readings and they say, well, am I going to do this, or am I going to do that? And before I'll even draw a card for them or take a look at the energy, I will tell them right away, it doesn't matter what these cards say. If you decide you're going to do it and you take the steps and you follow through, and be really decisive about it, that's the big kicker right there. That's the big kicker. The universe responds to knowing that you've made the decision. You really mean it. Now, I will also say, and this is so interesting to me too, I learned this one several years back. I was really on board with something. I had made my decision, put all the work in, did all the marketing, did all of the stuff to take a particular course with my business and my career. I had gone through a training, and I wanted to really take this work and really help it proliferate out into the world. And as a result of that, the woman whose training, whose certification I went through, she was really excited for me to take the work out into the world. It was her work. And I would tell you what, Lauren, I did everything that you're supposed to do. I was a go-getter. I lined it all up. I did all of the things. I did all the groundwork and the structural work and the framework and the everything. And every time I tried to set it up, it wouldn't come through. It would fall through every time. And I kept trying to set up another workshop or training or another one, and they would never line up. And that is the universe telling you, this isn't for you. So even though I was completely on board and I had made the decision and I did all the things, there are times when God, spirit, the universe will save you from something that's not really either in your highest interest or meant for you ultimately. And I realized pretty quickly that was the case. And instead of getting upset about it, I got curious about it and I let it go. And then I quickly realized I was going to be really selling myself short. So my work is to offer my own content, not somebody else's.
Yeah, that makes good sense. I too many times I've had my eye on a target, and I guess, and I didn't even hit the board. Um, and I guess those things weren't my path. But it certainly is frustrating when you think something is your target and the universe or whatever forces just don't allow that to come together. It certainly can be discouraging when you think that's something that you're supposed to be doing and maybe it's not. We talked a little bit about Bruce Lipton the other day when we spoke on the phone and the biology of belief. So that was actually one of my first books. And I mean, he fascinates me a lot because, well, he's this microbiologist. I think that's his title. And he works largely around science and also spirituality, and he's able to pull them together. In his book, The Biology of Belief, I think it's just so cool when, he's talking about everything on a, microscopic level. And the beginning of the book, he's not very spiritual at all. And then he goes to a chiropractor and delves into muscle testing. And then he's fascinated by all of that. His second half of the book is spent trying to support what he experienced in the chiropractor's office based around his findings that he has found as a microbiologist. And he's actually able to pull the spiritual together with the scientific. And it was a great book for me to start with when I started down this path, because it was able to kind of justify in a scientific sense what was most likely taking place on a microscopic level. Anyway, it's a fascinating book, and I think he's just an amazing character, very interesting to watch.
But, I remember my first exposure to sort of like quantum physics and Bruce Lipton and all of those folks was back. And how many years ago was this? Like 25 years ago, maybe, when What the Bleep Do We Know, the movie came out. And, for somebody like me, I was like, oh, well, here's something that finally explains all the stuff that I already know and believe and practice. But it felt really validating because when they released that movie and you have people like Bruce Lipton on, or Darren Weissman, or, some of the other folks, talking, using their scientific background and knowledge, and bringing that together with essentially spirituality or metaphysics, which is this more cosmological understanding of the world. It just all goes together so beautifully. And I don't think that science and spirit are necessarily different things. I think they're different approaches to trying to understand life and how life works. And as a student of religion and spirituality, I see through all these different sort of religious lenses like that I've been blessed to study and look at, that when you bring the basics together, that they might use different language, they might have different models, but there's so much basic stuff there that's the same. It's so much the same, and it's beautiful. And I love the way like the biology of belief and things like quantum physics can demonstrate in a whole other sort of view, a whole other model of this is how they understand it works. And they have a way of explaining that, by location or the way energy transfers, like energy can't necessarily be destroyed. My belief system is that everything is made of energy. And that's a little bit maybe more scientific, but to me, it's wholly spiritual. And if everything's made of energy, maybe that thing that is energy is God or the divine or spirit or whatever. And so if we figure out how to understand it, how to read it, how to interact with it, maybe we affect change along with it. We co-create. But Bruce Lipton, and like muscle testing, all of that stuff, I got exposed to that such a long time ago. And I've watched how beautiful and miraculous it is. And it goes to show that our body is the source of wisdom. Our body is a source of wisdom. In our society, we're so kind of divorced from understanding our bodies and how they work. Or, I'm a big nerd for anatomy and physiology. And that started as a child. I was into all that stuff, and then I became a massage therapist and taught massage school. And so I just love to study and learn, and anything about the body to me is fascinating. But then when we really pay attention to it, when we listen to it, when we talk to it, when we access the information and the wisdom that's housed in here, then we know what to do in life. We're given a lot of information, we just don't know how to access it. And I think Bruce Lipton offers us some different tools and ways of understanding how to access that information.
So I listened to some of your other podcasts. They're fantastic, by the way. There was this one question that really got me thinking. You mentioned something along the lines of, when it comes to transformation, one of the questions you might ask yourself is, what is dying in my life? Or what is it that is time to let go of? Sometimes the things that are hardest to let go of are the things that you cherish the most. Do you have anything to add to that? I mean, that really got my wheels spinning. I definitely put some thought to that.
I've come to see that some of the biggest ways that we can shift our lives and our energy is in the letting go. And we don't let go very well or easily in Western society. We're not taught how to do that. It feels foreign. It feels like loss. A lot of us are sort of operating on this lack mentality anyway, that there's not enough. And so why would we let something go if there's not enough of whatever, going around? But the beauty of letting go is, for one thing, we create space in our lives. And so if we let go of something or someone or a situation that we've been holding on to so tightly, we free up a lot of energy and a lot of space. And nature abhors a vacuum. So once you open up and have some empty space there, it's like, are you going to let it be empty for a while? Which is a good idea, because then you've got a fertile void available. But then you also can be really discerning about, well, what gets to come in and fill that space that's been left or created, and the letting go. The other thing is, we get so hooked on like expectation. We want certain things to show up in very specific ways. And when we do that, we're really kind of got this tunnel vision. So if we've got this very limited idea about certain things showing up in certain ways, we are limiting possibility in our lives. We've got like endless possibilities. A lot of people think, well, I could do this or that. And I'm like, well, look at the space between this or that. Like, what about all of this? Like and then what about everything else all around? Like, we limit ourselves. So if we can let go of things, if we can let go of expectations, if we can let go of the way that certain things show up in our lives, then maybe what actually comes in is a lot better than what we could have thought or hoped for.
Very wise words. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we start to wrap this up?
Well, I've been at this for a long time, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of a lot of things. I've been fortunate to be a voracious student. Um, I think I teach because I like to learn, but what I've noticed, especially in the last few years, I'm 52, I'll be 53 this year, is the more I learn and the more I live and experience, the deeper the mystery, the deeper the mystery. And I'm so humbled, truly humbled by that. It touches me just to think of how deep the mystery goes. And if we're dedicated to want to know and to understand and to witness life as it unfolds, I think that life will continue to lead us down through the mystery. It's all a big mystery. It's a beautiful one.